Hi, everyone. This is Tori Vandeland with Prevent Connect. This podcast is part 2 of our conversation with Susan Sullivan and Mo Lewis of the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. On part 1 of this podcast, we talked about a bunch of different resources that the National Sexual Violence Resource Center has for folks who are engaging in Sexual Assault Awareness Month 2020 activities, including some new resources that focus specifically on primary prevention. On this podcast, Mo and Susan talk to us a little bit more about specific ways that folks can get involved and how folks can continue the momentum of Sexual Assault Awareness Month throughout the year and beyond. Enjoy! So another thing that I noticed when looking at all of the wonderful Sexual Assault Awareness Month 2020 resources you all have are these really cool social media graphics you have that have great definitions and phrases about consent. So a couple of them that really stood out to me are consent is a skill, you get better as you practice, and consent is a normal and necessary part of sex. So knowing that these social media graphics exist and we're living in this age of social media and sharing and online engagement, how can prevention practitioners and other folks participating in Sexual Assault Awareness Month better help to solidify these messages for folks who may be resistant or don't quite get it yet?
A lot of people don't have in-person SAAM events. So we wanted to share messages that are, short enough to fit in a social media share graphic, but also be something that, is helpful, is important, and is actionable. For instance, our phrase, consent is a skill you get better as you practice. And what we really are acknowledging there is, okay, asking for consent can be awkward at first, right? But every time you do it and have these conversations, they become second nature. And so we don't want the idea of consent to feel intimidating. And then as for consent is a normal and necessary part of sex, that's a tagline that we used in last year's campaign. And then again, it appears on a lot of materials this year. And what it's saying is, hey, asking for consent, it's not optional. It's something that needs to take place when you're entering a sexual situation. But at the same time, it's normal. And hopefully your partner is expecting you to ask, or they're the one who's asking you. And so you don't have to feel like you're the only one who's asking for consent or that does this. It's really something that should just be a part of everybody's routine.
I love that. And how can individuals, groups, and organizations get involved in Sexual Assault Awareness Month this year and empower themselves and others to ask for consent?
Yeah, so I think one of the best things that anybody can do, an organization or an individual, is to plan an in-person SAAM event in your community. Some people have poetry slams. Some people tie teal ribbons around trees in their neighborhoods. But whatever it looks like, it's a great opportunity to have these conversations about consent, to be giving out these resources, to be making sure that we're getting the message out there. And this year we have an exciting feature of the campaign, which is our national event list. Anybody that's planning a SAAM campaign in their community can register their event with us. You can do that by going to nsvrc.org/SAAM/events. You basically can create an event page that you can share with your audience, and it's a great way to be a supportive presence for survivors in your community when you plan these events. And if you're not interested in necessarily planning an event, but you'd like to support an event or attend an event, you can use that same website to find an event in your community. Or if you're not an event person, but you really want to get involved, there is a way to do that online, and that is taking part in our annual 30 Days of SAAM Instagram contest. Every day in April, we provide an open-ended prompt where participants can respond with a photo on Instagram. For instance, the first day of April's prompt is, at the beginning of SAAM, and we're asking folks to share a snapshot that captures their goals, hopes, and feelings about SAAM. And so every day we'll be selecting a winner from that contest who will be receiving a prize pack, and folks that participate every day in April will be entered to the grand prize drawing at the end of the month. And so if you're looking for something that's not an event, that's a really good option.
So you had mentioned that the first of the 30 Days of SAAM is talking about folks' goals for SAAM. So I want to know what your goals are for both of you. What conversations and impact do you hope that I Ask and Sexual Assault Awareness Month 2020 inspires and motivates in others?
I think the most important message of this campaign is think about how your actions might make somebody else feel, and then ask questions when you don't know for sure. And I hope that the resources and messaging help empower people to make more thoughtful choices and to develop healthier communication skills when it comes to healthy sexuality. The more that we talk about consent and we spread these basic messages about communicating with your partner, the more people will feel empowered to do it and the more normalized it'll become.
Mm-hmm. So true. Mo, do you have anything to add to this one about what conversations and impacts you hope will come out of SAAM or the resource that we had been talking about earlier?
I really agree with Susan about how this can help people think about how their actions might make someone else feel. A lot of times in the past, there's been this idea of like, you need to make sure you're saying no. And I feel like over like maybe the past 10 or 20 years, there's been this shifting to it's everybody's responsibility to ask for consent. And also there are still so many people who are just now learning about consent or learning about the importance of it. So I really like that we have been continuing this theme for a couple of years. I think it can really help with getting that message out there and helping change how people are thinking about this.
So Sexual Assault Awareness Month is only 1 month, and prevention happens all months out of the year. So how can prevention practitioners, organizations, and just activated folks and communities continue the momentum of Sexual Assault Awareness Month throughout the year?
Yeah, I think that SAAM is just such a great opportunity to build relationships with organizations in your community, as well as build your list of supporters by having events. And that's something that you can then take advantage of as you continue to host events or actions throughout the year. You have those networks that you can call on to help you out. But also consent is something that you can really talk about, year round. I will say that last year, following the I Ask for Consent campaign in 2019, when it came back to school time in August, we saw a huge resurgence of interest in those materials from folks that were looking to talk about consent on campuses or in high schools. So that's something to keep in mind as you continue educational outreach around consent beyond SAAM.
Susan and Mo, is there anything else that you all want to add before we close out this podcast?
I just encourage everybody to check out the SAAM website. We have some great campaign video this year. I hope everybody will check it out. And hopefully, you'll find the resources you need to make the most of the SAAM campaign this April.
Okay, well, thank you both so much for joining us. We will make sure that folks have links to everything that they need so that way they can finish listening to this podcast and go check out all those resources.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.